everybody, and welcome to. We are connecting still across a couple places right now, so we might be seeing you on different platforms. Dina, I want to welcome Dina here. We'll introduce Dina a little bit better right now, but as we're getting started, because we're just popping in here, just showing off a little bit of where we're at. I'm gonna go find Dina. Why don't we go to our social media places and find it? So we're streaming live on Cloudflare Dev. If you're not following us there on Cloudflare Dev, I don't even know what you're doing. Definitely should be following Cloudflare Dev. Lots of great information there, especially what we're going to be talking about. A lot of stuff coming from there. I'm trying to make sure that I have access to there. So there we go, live over here. I see that we are live on Cloudflare Dev. We have a Cloudflare LinkedIn page. I don't know how many people hang out over on LinkedIn, but there's a great live stream going on over there as well. I'm trying to see if that post is here. Just want to make sure that I can see people's comments. Almost there. 1 second. I can't find it on Cloudflare just yet. So I am sorry if you are on the Cloudflare LinkedIn. I am not seeing it. Are you seeing it there? Let's see. There we go. I found it. I found the post. All right. We are live there. I lost it as soon as I clicked it. One more time. I swear we're going to get started here. This is probably where we should be saying get started in about 10 minutes. But we don't. I don't have that page yet because this is a dry run. This is a dry one. We're not quite there yet. Almost there. 1 second. Let me find that one more time. It is there. And now I can see the comments here. Excellent. All right. LinkedIn is good. So I got a response there that LinkedIn's good. And we are also streaming on Cloudflare TV, which I don't know if you know about that, but that is a wonderful place to catch all things Cloudflare. We produce a lot of shows there as well. My screen is currently ready to go. All right, let's do this thing. Dina, you ready?
So ready. Let's get into it.
All right, everybody, welcome to Dry Run. That was a little bit of a dry run example of what we got going on here today. we have the wonderful Dina Kozlov with us. She's a senior product manager. You might recognize the last name. Last week we had Rita Kozlov on. I am trying to collect all of them. I got to collect all the Kozlovs. Dina, who do we have left to get on this show?
There is actually one more that works at Cloudflare.
No, there isn't.
But there is.
No way. There is?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. I got it. I want to know. I want to know more about that, and I want to have them on the show,
So
even just for a little bit.
week.
Let's do it. Let's do it. All the Kozlovs. I'm so excited to talk to Dina today. Dina made a post where she's like, FOMO no mo about MCP. And MCP is the Model Context Protocol. And Dina, I got to tell you, I have FOMO. Or I have the fear of missing out, right, on MCP. And maybe that's a good, maybe acronyms is a good way to start this. I think, why don't I'll take the part that I can do, and then we're gonna make you do a lot of work here, Dina, on educating everybody. So I know MCP stands for Model Context Protocol.
Yep.
And I know that a protocol is agreed upon sort of situation, right? So like if one of my favorite protocols I think that we do all the time is like at protests or something where when someone's like, when I say foo, you say bar. You go foo, bar, foo, bar. And it'd be weird if you didn't say bar. Like if you yelled something else, it'd be strange. You would break the protocol. So there's this like agreed upon protocol that happens. And that's what the word protocol means. So I know what the P is. And model context, I think I have this one. So we have these AI models, and we know that the context is important, right? And there's this, we hear about it all the time. We hear about this, the context window has gotten bigger. We could put more context into the model. And the more that the model knows, right? The more context the model has, the better the application is going to be. That's kind of like what we've been finding is that like, if you can get more information in there, or you could let it even do things, right? So we have like the ability, most models these days, most text generation models have the ability to do this thing called tool calling, where you can go and call like a function. You can say, hey, model, when you don't know what to do, contextually, model, so in this model context, I want you to go call this other thing. And you write the code for that, and you do this sort of stuff. And I know just from what I'm seeing that it's sort of related to that. So we've got the model context that's got information and it's got functions and tools and stuff. But that's it. I'm tapped out, Dina. I am completely done on my knowledge on MCP there. Other than people are super excited about it. Why are people so excited about it?
So many reasons. Actually, so funny that you brought up all the layers of MCP, or just giving context to the models, because it is so new. It came out at the end of November. It's an open source protocol developed by Anthropic, but actually, if you go
Okay.
and ask any of the AI assistants, even Claude, they do not exactly know what MCP stands for. They always come up with a different three-letter acronym. One time it was like modern Cloudflare something. So you are actually in this moment smarter than the AI.
Ironically, yeah, that's funny. It's ironic that like it's not in the model's context
No,
because right
you got to give it
the
context.
training data went up to a certain time. Oh, that's funny.
Exactly. No, but why are people so excited? I feel like the aha moment that I had
Yeah.
is a few months ago. I was using Claude. I've started using Claude just to be able to build different projects on workers, and just be able to, I don't know, I feel like there's all these ideas that I have, and I've never felt like sitting down, taking the time to like read through documentation. But all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't really have to do that. I can just ask Claude like, hey, can you help me figure out how to run performance tests? And this is exactly what I'm looking for, and this is the kind of analysis that I want to get on it. And so the amazing thing is that it knows different services really well. Even in an unofficial way, you can copy and paste documentation to it, and it will figure out how to use different products. And it will tell you, if you want to run performance testing, here's how I recommend setting up this experiment. And then if you want to use this provider, this is exactly what you need to go do. And you're like, awesome. I just go follow the instructions. Don't really have to think much about it. And then it
So
gives me that end result.
it, in this case, you're in Claude, which is like a
Yes.
chat GPT sort of interface where you're chatting with it, it's giving you back these answers and you're following those instructions.
Exactly.
Okay.
Or even building on our developer platform. I was like, whoa, we got these new products that are coming out. How do I use them? Help me
Right.
brainstorm like a fun use case to build, and then let's work together to build it out.
Nice.
But it does at a certain point get frustrating, because you are just following instructions. You're kind of taking what it says and then you're like clicking some buttons. Or for example, if I'm asking it to help me write some workers, I'm just copying and pasting different changes that it makes, pasting it into my worker. And it becomes, you're again slowing yourself down, and it becomes this frustrating process.
Gotcha.
And so it's one of those moments where you're like, wouldn't it be amazing if I was like, hey, Claude, can you run the performance test for me, put together the report, and print it out for me? And that is exactly what MCP allows you to do. So before MCP, it can give you instructions on how to use
Yeah.
services. It can essentially take a bunch of information, piece it together, and give it back to you. But with MCP, it can actually go through with those interactions itself. And so that means that it can run performance tests for you, it can deploy workers for you, it can. And the really cool thing is that, for example, if you think about Claude or Cursor, they're super, super smart. Claude is specialized in one way. Cursor is very much specialized around writing code. And you get to use its knowledge and brain power around what it's really good at, combined with like, here are the services that I want to use. And all of a sudden, it's very much this 1 + 1 = 3, where it's really good at making analyses. It's really good at, coming up with responses, making predictions. And so it just allows you
Gotcha.
to take any tool and take it even further.
So we talked about there. You have Claude, which is an interface, which is a chat interface, And then we have Cursor, that's the fork of VS Code. That's the integrated development environment that you can go and push um, and do steps on there. And when Cursor's working, is Cursor using MCP? I think it
Cursor
is, right?
supports MCP, yeah. So you can use any MCP server, but I guess just to use the Cloudflare example,
Yeah.
I installed the Cloudflare MCP server on Cursor. And the cool thing is that now I can be like, hey, this is the project that I want to build. It can go and it can create the files for me. It can then go and actually create the worker. It can figure out what bindings are necessary. So for example, you need a KV namespace, or you need to attach a database to make this work. And it doesn't just think that, it then goes, and now I'm creating one and automatically attaching it to your worker. And if depends on how good the sentence that you give it is, but literally in one go, it can have it fully deployed and be like, here's the URL, go look at it, which is really amazing.
Wow. So what's happening then is we are creating one. Well, let's take a look at ours. Let's take a look at ours later. Let's get into this a little bit deeper because I'm really interested. So I get it. So
Mhm.
so we as Cloudflare can build our own. We
Yep.
have an API. We have an API that people could go and use, and we're saying, hey, magic internet computer, why don't you use natural language and you go do the deploy? We tell it what it can do. So we provide a MC. You said server, is that right? MCP server.
MCP
So
server.
we provide an MCP server that you can connect to, that you can go and deploy, and literally everybody can do that. So
Yes.
everybody can go and create one of their things. Ah,
Yes.
okay, okay. And
And
it encapsulates the tools and okay, awesome.
yeah, and I would say
How?
today it very much
Yeah.
because there's a lot of existing services. They've already built out their API endpoints, and so MCP is mostly used as a wrapper around existing APIs. But I think this is just the start of the protocol, and
Okay.
so very quickly we're just going to start to see native MCP support where it is not necessarily wrapping an API endpoint, but a service may only be exposed via MCP. Um, yeah.
Gotcha. And are okay, so Cursor is connecting to the server. Like Cursor in that case is a client
Yes.
to the server, and Claude in that case is also sort of a
Mm-hmm.
server. So how did this start? What start? Do you know the history of how this went? Because I know that you've been in this for a while. I've been seeing you chat about this a lot in the
Yeah.
channel.
I actually don't know the history before the launch.
Okay.
Maybe if somebody that worked on MCP that is watching out there can give us some more
Yeah.
context around it. But I know that it was launched by Anthropic, and they showed a few really great examples where you can connect to your Google Drive, and now directly from Claude, it can modify Google Docs for you. It can play around with your calendar to actually book meetings. You can integrate it with your email so that, for example, you can say, here where my meeting notes are at. Can you summarize them and send them out? And it can do that whole workflow for you. And
Gotcha. Like
so,
in English
mhm.
on the Claude side, I just say that, and because it's connected and because it has access, and how do I give it access to all that
Yes.
stuff?
So
I
to
as a user?
Yes, so today MCP
Okay.
is only available locally. So there
Oh,
are a lot of MCP servers, but what actually happens is the MCP client and the MCP server are effectively running on your machine.
gotcha.
So actually, I switched laptops a few months ago, like a month ago, and all my MCP servers were gone, and I was like, no, I have to reconfigure everything. So there is a bit
Oh,
of a restriction around that, but I do think that it still has allowed a lot of developers to start using the protocol and building a ton of MCP servers. I think I saw there's like 10,000 of them now. And it
wow.
was, Yeah, we had AI demo days in London that was hosted at our office. And David, he was one of the founders of MCP. He was giving a talk about how he likes to play games with his friends. And so he wanted to be able to play those directly from the cloud interface. And so selfishly, he built MCP servers that allowed him to do that. But you can build one for anything. You can bring
Right.
image generation to Claude. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Because and essentially, I think that's it, right? Like you're giving extra. I mean, let's get back to the what that acronym is. It's a protocol, and you're bringing a model context, and you're bringing in these tools that have English descriptions of how to use them, so that I can use this in English. I don't even need to know about the code. I just need to bring the thing in. So
Exactly.
it's almost like a step of I've been seeing a lot of people out there talking about like, oh, we already have APIs, but this is almost like the English wrapper for an
Yes.
API. When you said wrapper, that's not it's clicking. It's clicking, Dina. It's working.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting the information in
I,
there.
I think
Um,
of it as kind of like two-sided. The analogy that keeps getting used that I think is a good one is it's like the USB-C port. But if you think about it, on one side you have an LLM, and so it takes what the user writes in natural language,
right.
translates it into what you want to be done, and then that's on the client side. And then on the server side, you, for example, do have API endpoints, and you translate them to a way that the MCP client knows how to call on them. It knows exactly what parameters are needed to submit. It knows what response it should expect to get. And so the server, it exposes its tools. It'll be like, you can post on Slack, you can get thread, you can create a new user, and the MCP client essentially figures out, okay, these are the tools that I want to use based on what this user is trying to accomplish. um, Let me figure out what parameters I need to submit to be able to call those tools and get a response back that allows me to complete the task that the user is asking for.
Awesome. And so I can do this now as a dev. We talked in the beginning about this, that I can do this like for models that support tool calling. I could do this, right? So we were kind of like I could kind of do tool calling in that way, but I'm doing it, right? I'm not going off and picking up off the shelf. Here's a packaged up. It's almost like a package. It's almost like a tool call package.
It is.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. I'm getting it. I feel like I feel like we're getting some understanding in some of the chats too here.
I think
Let
another
me
way,
see. Yeah.
another thing that has helped it click for me is if you think about how users use a product today, there's kind of two main experiences. There's the
Yep.
dashboard, which is very much designed for a human. And so if you watch an AI agent, for example, go through a dashboard or go through a UI, it feels a bit off because you're like, I feel like you shouldn't be clicking on all these things. You don't need that. You just need to know what you need to use and how to use it. Um,
Gotcha.
and the other interface is APIs. But APIs are also limiting because you have to design systems that make them work well together. And
Yeah.
so, where I think MCP is the connecting thread is it sees here are all of the, let's say, different APIs it can call. It knows how to use them together very well. So, for example, I can ask the Cloudflare MCP server, can you get my traffic analytics for the last week? Okay, figure out, have there been any, what has the bot traffic been like? What have the attacks been like? Does this correlate to, any of my workers? And it all of a sudden pulls from all these different places and allows you to use like Cloudflare even better than, we it's much harder to stitch that experience together either through a UI or have somebody do that by connecting APIs together. It just does it for you.
Yeah, that's right. And I do feel like that very popular Carpathic of English is the hottest new programming language. I think we're getting deeper down that truth right now, where you're saying like um it should be able to figure it out. So the P on there, the protocol bit of that, to be able to play this, to be able to play and make one of these MP server, there's a pretty defined protocol of what needs
Mm-hmm.
to happen.
So
Okay.
it is pretty loosely defined at its core.
Yeah.
It's JSON RPC messages that are sent from the client to the server.
Okay.
But there is a TypeScript SDK. There's also other SDKs that are available that allow you to use it and spin up your own MCP client or your own MCP server. It's actually funny if you go to the documentation around how to spin up an MCP server, it says use Claude to help you build this. Here are the instructions to feed it.
Oh, that's cute. And again, so like Anthropic, this came out of Anthropic, but it is a public protocol. Everybody's gonna.
Yes.
I heard you saying Google has it, so like even everybody who is having the fun competitive game right now of who's gonna own this space. This is a tool for literally everybody. Dina, can you bring up the docs? Can we bring up the docs on your screen on
Yeah.
the MCP docs so that we can kind of take a look at that? Because I would love to walk through this a little bit. Um,
And the really nice thing is it's very much community based. If you go, we can click on it, the GitHub, with all the issues. You can see developers from all around the community contributing their ideas, their thoughts about how it should work. Um, and so
I'm
it's
gonna
not
pop
just.
those docs out to the chats of where we're streaming currently, so everybody can also kind of jump in as well. Let's see that. Sorry, I'm trying to get here. Awesome. All right. Cool. Okay, so there, right there. Think of it like the USB-C for your AI applications. Standard way to connect. Yeah, that makes sense, right? Like I could just plug a device in, a new microphone in, and the microphone works because the microphone, it meets the necessary things that the computer needs to know about a microphone. So I am plugging this in. We've got the servers there that you've been talking about. Uh, and okay, okay, right. And we started where it's local. So the clients are local,
Mhm.
right? Currently the clients are local. And if we scroll down a little bit more into this Explore MCP, I would love to talk about what these things are here. So resources. So I'm used to resources in the typical REST way, right? So R is that, right? In a REST API. So a resource, expose data and content from your servers to LLM. So is that like docs or like
Yeah,
instructions or
it can be documents, it can be databases. I think of this as giving context to the client. So for example, let's say you want to be able to give it your logs so that it knows, okay, this is the state that this is currently in. It's not necessarily a function call, but it's more of you are giving it context in some form, so that it knows then more of how to interact with the services that you want, how to perform what you're looking for.
gotcha. And when I go to define my MCP server, one of the things I say is this is the place where to get the information from. This is how you should go get the information. Okay, awesome.
When you define your MCP server, what do you mean by that? Oh, this is where you go.
When if I were building an MCP server and I wanted to provide resources to it, I would like I
Oh,
guess I would
yes,
I would say here's the directory or here's the yeah or here's
exactly.
the yeah. Okay. And then so it provides prompts is the other is that the another thing that the MCP server itself provides prompts.
Yes. So prompts, they're kind of like it says templates for different workflows. But let's say, for example, that you are exposing all of your APIs as tools. Um, you know, you as the person that has developed these, you may know that there are better ways to use these to complete some kind of task. So for
Right.
example, let's say that we want to add debugging to our MCP server. You don't want it to go and call every single tool, but maybe you write a prompt for it that says, you call this tool to check this. Based on that response, check this. It kind of allows you to give it more, just more hints around how it should complete an actual task.
Gotcha.
So it's just a faster, smarter way to get to what the user is asking for.
Awesome. And it's in English. So you're kind of like, if I'm now let's put me on the other side of that. If I'm like a client, or I don't want to say client. If I'm a user and I'm looking at an MCP server, do I get to see the example prompts that are there?
You do, yes.
Oh, so I
Um,
can learn kind of what's possible or what they were thinking
exactly.
about. Rad. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. So
So
it's also serving as documentation at this point in that.
in a form,
Yeah.
I almost think of it as like, you know how you go to a site and you're like, here's some demo examples of what you can build. It's kind
Yeah.
of like that. And so I was playing around with it for the Cloudflare MCP. And so
Yeah.
we do have a lot of great examples of, if you want to build an AI agent, here's what you do. If you want to build a simple worker that does this, this is what you do. And got to write up some prompts that essentially walked it through. If you are doing this, like, here's the best flow of interaction tool calls for you to make to be able to do this thing. And so that is a lot more efficient than now it has to go and use its own knowledge to figure out, okay, what do I call? What do I do? Yeah. And so
Gotcha.
also once you develop these prompts, Claude Code supports prompts. You can ask it to see what are all the prompts available with the MCP server, and it will literally give you the list of all of these. And you can be like, oh, okay,
Oh,
this is the
that's
one I
right.
want to use.
That's right. Claude Code came out very recently, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
assuming I'm going to go for it. Claude Code is an MCP client that you can add, like you were just saying, you can add MCP servers to. So then it's a command line based thing. So I could say in our situation where, you said that we could our our own, I could install the Cloudflare MCP and I could say deploy a worker that says hello world, and from the Claude Code CLI, from the command line interface from this
Mm-hmm.
Claude Code tool, I could go and it would just do that. It would go create and deploy the thing, or
Exactly.
something along those lines.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that I'm trying to do, I could go say like what oh, that's actually cool. I would love this. If we could make it be like, hey, um run the SQL query against this database here for me, right? Like I want to what's
Exactly.
going on in this database? How many users are there?
Yep.
And it will go. Oh wow, that's really
Mm-hmm.
powerful. That's super cool. And
And
then nobody else needs to do that too, right? Nobody needs to go and write that code
right.
to make that work.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
And actually, the way that they describe it in the architecture is you have your host, and that would be like Claude Code or Claude Desktop or Cursor, Windsurf, and then within the host you have an MCP client that talks to the MCP server, and
Gotcha.
so I'm only noting this because I think it also helps bridge the gap between AI agents and MCP. So think of AI agents, there are going to be these hosts that are then able to use MCP to either make outgoing calls or serve as an MCP server themselves um, to be able to talk to MCP clients.
Hold on a second. let me try let me try to get that one. So AI agents, we've been talking about that on the past couple shows. We've been talking about AI agents. So AI agents, we have these long AI agents are these long running entities that go and act on your behalf. And typically the way they act on your behalf, before having MCP in your hands, you would go and you'd write the tool call stuff that we were talking about. So it would go and we go, like, oh, I know how to do this. I'm going to go run the tool call. But now it can have a client, it can be a host, and have its own client that can go and connect out. Much like how I use Fetch to connect to REST APIs, I'm using this MCP client to connect to the
Exactly.
host. Gotcha.
100%.
Okay, cool. And there's an SDK.
Yes.
Nice. And much like how this is like this is like very old. There was this like promise a long time ago that we were gonna define everything in this like SOAP protocol. This feels like we're like back in this place where like it would define what it did, and there was a special client that would go and run it. So the thing registers, right? So it registers. Okay. I'm getting it, Dina. You're getting it in my brain. We talked about tools. Tools are the ability for it, what it's capable of doing. Prompts are helping document what it's capable of doing and showing how you might use them together. And now we have sampling. So what is going on with sampling? What is that?
Sampling is essentially you can give context to the MCP client of what you want the response to be like. So you can either give it context around which models it recommends using on the client side. You can tell it the response. You can essentially give it a temperature of, I want it to be more technical, or I want it to be more abstract, the response that's given back. You can kind of tweak the way that the MCP client will then use the MCP server's tools. And so, for
Trying to process
example,
that.
if the MCP server needs to run some LLM model to generate the response, instead of running that on the server side, you can actually have the client run it on its side. And the nice thing about that is, one, if the client already has a subscription to the LLM, they can just use their own tokens to run it. But also, from a security standpoint, you don't have to expose any sensitive data or API or keys to have to run that model. You can just give that back to the
Oh.
client and be like, here's what you do. Here's how you get the response.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think about that, that the MCP server itself might not have access to the LLM that you want. That's important. That's
Exactly.
like super important because how is it going to find the right tool? So it sends back to the client, says, "Hey, I want you to run this. This is what
Yeah,
this like I'm
I
wow.
can do
Okay,
that.
so the client connects to the MCP server. The MCP server is like, "Hey, I can do this, but I'm going to need some help with some LLM magic
Yes.
when you're done.
So
And here's the stuff. Oh,
yes.
super cool.
So, for example, you can give it hints. So you can give it a model name that it suggests using. Um, you can, um, you can give it, yeah, the priority value. So this is like, I want the response to be, more. It depends on, what the parameters are of your application. Let's say I'm building a worker. Make it more creative, or just make it like work. I don't know, that could be one. Or for example, yeah, minimizing costs. Um, yeah, this is the one that I haven't seen implementations of this, or and so this is based on, I feel like, what it says slash different people have been giving their opinions on how they think this would work. But I do think this one's going to develop the most, just because it is just the most vague one right now. And there's not clear examples in the wild of this being used today.
But like, so this makes sense. If I don't want to, I as a like, I think this is kind of hard to wrap my brain around right now. But I think let me try this. Let me see if this works. I don't I don't want to just trust that one of these servers is going to use an LLM with my information. I don't
Exactly.
want that to happen because I don't know
Exactly.
what LLM they're using, and as we know, sometimes those things leak. So
Yeah.
this is also a safety mechanism where it's like you do this client on your side, and you've agreed that if you're in control of the client, and then that way you're not using any LLM or AI stuff there that they don't agree to when they choose it.
Exactly. You're like, I already have
Gotcha.
my own LLM that I prefer to use. I have my API key.
Yeah.
I've already paid for my
Yeah.
subscription. Just use that.
I maybe you're logging all of the calls through it, right?
Exactly.
You know what? This makes sense in like if I go flip back to what we were talking about, where we talk about Cursor as the IDE, Cursor as the IDE, that's a host that has a client on it. It's coming and it's using my Claude thing, but it's going off and it's doing whatever it needs to do okay, got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
You can
It's
also, for
so
example, with Cursor, you have all the different models that you can use. But different models are good at different things. And so, for example, for something that's more coding tools type of MCP server, you may recommend certain models because that's what they specialize in. And so you give
right.
it a hint that it should use that.
Yeah. And I can choose different ones, right? In my configuration, I'm using it, and it is actually going and it's making the calls, and but you are suggesting this is the style when you go to make that call,
Exactly.
this is what you should do. And those are slowly becoming universal, right? The temperature and the
Yeah.
max tokens and that sort of. Okay.
I
Wow.
feel like all of these tools, they just make the interaction between, the LLM and the service, they they're all tools to improve that interaction and to help the user get to the end state as quickly as they can
Yeah.
and get it exactly what it's looking for. Because especially as
Yeah.
this is developing, you can see where you're like, oh, this is so cool, but it obviously doesn't work the way that you want it to. And so I think the more you adopt these tools, the more you can get it to work exactly the way the user expects.
Yeah. And then so when those serve you said that they're sending they typically send JSON WebRTC. Is it WebRTC? Is that what you said? Messages or
JSON RPC.
oh, RPC, so remote procedure calls is what
Hmm.
it's saying. Okay, cool. Um and when it connects to that server, is it's a consistent connection, or is it making a request each time? Like is that what transports means on that page? Is
So
there
that's what
different?
transports means.
Oh,
There you go, JSON RPC. And yeah, there's the transport layer. The two main methods of transport, um, technically three. First one is Studio, which is more the local based one, more input
okay.
output based. But the ones that will become bigger, especially as we move towards remote MCP, are going to be server-side events, which is where the server sends messages to the client, and
Gotcha.
it's very
That's
much
what
like
we've
a
been
one-to-one.
using for like prompting, like when you send like a token at a time. That's that SSE, like server sent
Exactly.
events. Yeah. Okay.
It's like a one-way communication channel.
Right.
So good for simple streaming things. Um, Good for event driven updates. So for
Hmm.
example, if you want to have push notifications, but what it's not good at is whenever the client then has to make a request to the server, for example, give it some response back or poll it or essentially have that bi-directional communication. For that, you want to use WebSockets. WebSockets
Gotcha.
allow the
Yeah.
client and the server to send messages to one another.
What's the situation where where that one way is okay? Like what? Why even? What is that? How?
Um, like notifications, for example, of let's say whenever the price changes on something, the server sends the client a message. Um,
Okay.
and then from there on, yeah, the client doesn't necessarily need to interact back with it. But it is very limiting.
Gotcha. Or maybe you're like this thing and then stream the text back. Like like just like
Exactly.
streaming the text back, but you're not saying, oh, based on what you said, I want to do this. You just make another request that time. So it
Exactly.
would
And
be
you have to
sort of
start a new
sort of disconnected.
connection. Yeah,
Yeah,
even
okay,
on the
gotcha,
client.
gotcha. But WebSockets gives you that real time. So these can be real time, like our agents. Our agents are like really great at being up in our new
Exactly.
agent framework stuff. Okay,
Yeah, so you
okay,
can have them
cool.
both send messages to each other dynamically. Really good for long running operations. Um, it can send status updates. You, as the client, can send it feedback.
It in Okay, so people are building. You said 10,000 people. Is there like an NPM or something for these? Like how what is
There have been a few directories that have been built out. There's MCP .run.
okay,
This is one where you can see a lot of the different servers that people have built. There's Composio. Um, they have
Composio.
built one as well.
I think I met that
Let me
founder
find.
at a meetup one time. Super cool. Super cool
Um,
concepts.
is that MCP directory?
Okay.
Um, but this can show you all the different MCP servers that have been created. Some of these were created by the actual companies that
Right.
own these services, but a lot of them were created by developers that were like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I want my cursor cloud environment to have access to Figma and to have access to my coding environment and be able to tie the
Yeah.
two together."
Yeah, or I'm gonna it's almost like a library at this point, right? Where you're like, I'm gonna use this in another project. I'm gonna build this thing, I'm gonna use it in another project. And it's also like don't recreate the wheel sort of thing. Like go check and see if the thing exists before you go and figure it out. I just saw Stripe there, and I mean the amount of people, the amount of us devs who have sat there and worked with the APIs to go is that I. I've seen the stuff on the one of the things that made me start feeling FOMO. Back to the start of this episode, Dina tweeted about FOMO no mo on MCP, and I was like, we should just do this. We should do a show and bring this knowledge for because I've learned so much just watching this here. So Stripe, imagine that like in English, telling it like I want you to create a invoice, an annual subscription for this user at 495, but they had a discount of uh 10% because they were part of this campaign,
Yep.
and just say it in English to your jammy, and it does it.
Exactly. I
Wow.
think, for example, for e-commerce platforms, website builders, this could be such a great tool that allows their users to, you know, instead of having to go dig through the dashboard, can be like, what should I know? Like, how many users am I getting? Where are the requests coming from? What products are doing well? Are there any subscriptions that I should introduce? If so, can you build those out for me? Can you check the
Yeah.
stats on this thing? And just have one interface where it's kind of like a chatbot that you talk to.
Yeah. I one of the things that I hadn't grokked before is I saw people talking about like, oh, this is like Zapier, and it's kind of like Zapier for devs. It's kind of I mean not that Zapier is not for devs. I don't mean to diminish what Zapier, you create these zaps and you're like, when this happens, then I want it to go into my Google Calendar, and it is kind of wrapped. But I can do that as a user. I could do that as a consumer, because they've done such a great job of just exposing. And I'm assuming that with Zapier they have their those are official as well. Like we just said, like Stripe is probably official, Google's is probably official, and this is like for devs. This is like for your tools, and then because of the way that we're writing software is changing a lot, uh, we are probably going to be using these just like fetch calls to APIs, but instead of doing a fetch and going and doing the things, we're going fetching to this thing that exists, this known MCP server
Mm-hmm.
that we've chosen how to configure it back. So it is like Zapier a bit for, because same with Zapier, I say, I want to use this. Oh, and it says, oh, I need to have your Google, log in with your Google and approve that this happens. And
Yeah.
very similar. So I see the parallel now, but I had missed the fact that it's kind of for devs. I was kind of in the mindset that this is for user. I mean, eventually it will be, right? Like,
Yes.
well, I mean,
So
it is, I guess.
it is.
Yeah,
One, this is a perfect segue to talk about
yeah,
local to remote MCP. But you brought up auth, which is a very important aspect of
yeah,
MCP, because if you now have, AI agents that are doing things on your behalf, that can be scary. You want to make sure
yeah.
that you restrict what they have access to, what actions they can make. You might just want it to be read only interactions where you're like, I don't want you to modify anything, but okay to pull my data and give me all the analyses. And so Auth, if you've dug into Auth, it is not easy. It's very tricky. And so for local MCP, how you set it up today is you put an API token in your local file, and so that's how it can make requests to the service. But with
Gotcha.
remote MCP, you do want that auth flow, where as a
Yeah.
user, let's say you type in a URL, you're like, hey, I want to use the Notion MCP server to be able to manage my to-do lists. It should then take you to a screen where you know exactly what it will have access to. You can consent it. It takes the user back, and from that point on, the AI agent now can make those requests in a secure, trusted manner. Um, so that
In
is
a,
the key
yeah, yeah.
piece.
Nice. Okay. And that's, and is that part of is that part of it currently?
So not right now. It is part
Okay.
of the spec.
Okay.
Um,
So
like
we're in that stage of this is getting going. We have specs, there's RFCs, there's yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
Um, and so it currently requires that OAuth 2.1 is used between the client and the server. But this essentially allows you to have that flow where um, the user can consent and know exactly what the scope of the permission is, um, what
Gotcha.
calls it can make.
Gotcha. Cool. Cool. I mean, this is a problem that you end up like having to deal with. You were talking earlier about dashboard. You're like, I have this user in the dashboard and I need to figure out what they're allowed to do. And this is kind of the same sort of concept there.
Exactly.
Cool.
And
Sweet.
I think MCP is just going to become another entry point to services. And what you
Yeah.
were saying is this is for developers. And I think this is very much the case right now. But,
Hmm.
you know, I would say what 99% of the world, 98, they're not developers, they're not coders. And I do think this will become a very useful tools for your everyday users that actually they can just use natural language to make the most out of the platforms that they're using. So, for example, if you are let's say you work on a sales team at a company, you constantly are using these different tools. You may be using your CRM to find out which customers are in your pipeline. You
Yeah.
want to know about they have requested these different features. What is the progress of them? Are they on track?
Wow.
And so you
Wow.
can
Dina.
chat directly and be like, can you pull
Yeah.
these reports? What should I know about? And it can send you updates, say, hey, this JIRA ticket just closed. You can now notify the customer that this feature is done. It can actually write that email and send it for you.
Wow.
Boom,
And
boom,
like,
boom.
Dina, like as a you're a product manager, you're a senior product manager. Imagine being able to get into that data without waiting. Like, I need a query to do this. Somebody help me access the.
Yes.
Wow.
It's like
That's
I need to
powerful. I
constantly.
see why. Yeah.
And
Wow.
we will never have the time to figure out how to use all these tools, and I don't think that's the best use of our time. And so that's where we
Yeah.
can lean on this a lot. So even the PM example, I always want to know how's my product doing, but I have to go manually search. What are
Yeah.
people saying on Twitter? What are they saying on Discord? It would be amazing
Right.
if it just was able to send me updates and be like, "Hey, somebody just reported that this is broken," and I'm like, "Whoa, so glad you told me that," and I didn't have to go digging for it.
Wow. In that case, would you? In that case, that feels like. Let me try. Let me try. I'm gonna try. See if I got it in my brain. You have an AI agent that has access to your Twitter MCP, or I'm sorry, XMCP. your LinkedIn MCP if these exist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that I'm going to assume that everybody's going to have one, much like they have an API. And then your agent says, hey, Dina asked how things are going. I'm going to go use all these tools and bring them back, and then send her back the information in English, because we could do that now because we have these magic this process. So it's gonna take all the data, bring all the data together into this agent, and the agent's going to respond with the question that you asked. And you could say, actually, agent, I want you to email me every day with this report, and it could go run and do that thing all by itself, where normally you would have had to ask, internal stuff that takes forever. Wow, that's super powerful. I don't know if everybody I mean, I guess everybody is freaking out about how cool this is, and it's just like a new paradigm there. We've got a new way of thinking about this, and I think we have a new way of building applications, and I feel like people doing this. Well, I guess Dina got disconnected there. I hope that she's able to pop back in here. I can sort of wrap up a little bit what I was thinking there. Um, uh, I think that we've been doing all this vibe coding, and by vibe coding, I mean like generate this thing, and it goes in and generates this little, like, this is how you build the web page. And we have the different with bolt.new, we go in there, we tell it what to build, it goes and builds that thing. And sometimes we're like, now I need to go connect. Go back to Stripe. I need to connect to Stripe, and talk about, I need to go create a subscription for this thing, or I need to expose this one tool about how to do the Stripe. And this is how, in English LLM, I want you to call this if the user says this. But now it's this MCP call. This MCP call I pass, and it's already written. That same thing's already written, and it should be versioned just like an API, and going and available in a registry as well of what's there. So that is super powerful. I am glad that I took the time, and that you took the time, to be here, with Dina and I. And Dina's asking to be let back in. Here she comes. Dina, welcome back. Was it
Thank you.
something I said?
I think so. I think my laptop was like, that's enough of that. Let's restart right now. So apologies.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I was just talking about how this feels like it's like in alignment with, we're doing vibe coding a lot these days, right? We're just like, build this thing, and then like use the Stripe API,
Yeah,
and I'm writing that sometimes, but sometimes I'm just letting it generate it. It's like, why not just have it done and have it be nice and the official, right? Like the official way of doing that. And I would
exactly.
imagine when this context comes, we're going to have all these MCP clients. It's going to suggest use the MCP client to do that. I want to do and it will be in the doc. So like everybody should be building these. I think. What's
Yes.
your take on that, Dina? Should everybody be
Yes.
taking and building and exploring?
I would say there's two huge benefits. One is from the user side of, all of a sudden you can boost your productivity. You can do so much more. As soon as you start playing around with this, you're like, oh my, it's addicting. And then I think from the other side, as a service provider, all of a sudden you are giving one, access to a lot more users. So especially the non-technical crowd that
Right.
they know what they want to be done, but they don't know how to do it. You open up
Yeah.
that door to them. And then two, you allow your product to be used in so many new ways that are going to be much harder to build on your own. So building integrations is not easy. We always talk about 1+1 = 3 at Cloudflare, but every user wants different things out of different products, and you're never going to build all the things. And so this is one amazing way that you can leave it to the MCP client, the LLM, to figure out how to make that 1+1 = 3 happen. I think another cool thing, this is very much not there yet, but for example, as a service, let's say you're exposing your products through an MCP server, you can, there's different levels of subscriptions, and different features that you have offered on different plans. You can have it to even tell the user, like, hey, this thing that you want to do, this is as far as I can go on this plan, but on this other plan, here are all the things that you'll be able to do with it. And so
Gotcha.
just
An
opens up a lot of
upsell in
doors.
the tool itself.
I
In the
think at some
yeah.
point we'll have a marketplace within MCP. It's going to be, like I said, another entry point aside from dashboard and API.
Yeah. Can we I know that you said that we have a Cloudflare one. Can you show that? Is that
We
something we can do?
do, yes.
Yeah.
I
I know
let
your
me
machine
show
just
this.
restarted, so
I
maybe
know.
we
Give it a second. All right. So here I have Claude. You can use Claude, you can use Cursor. Also, we are in the process of adding more tools to the Cloudflare MCP server. So right now it's mainly D1, KV, workers, analytics, but we're working.
So real quick for that for those of you who don't know there, I'll do my job here as a developer educator of D1. We have this uh uh global database wherever you need it. KV, we have a key value store. We have this global network. You don't really need to think about where things are. You just kind of deploy, and it deploys to region Earth. And super lightning fast tools, very inexpensive to use. We have an incredibly generous free tier. Um, so you said it has D1, so it's database. Oh, that's cool. That was a
Mhm.
question that I wanted to do earlier.
It
Oh,
has
go ahead.
analytics. This is one that I built. It broke. So we won't look at that one. But we are working on getting browser rendering into an
Yeah,
MCP tool, which means that you can ask it, hey, can you grab screenshots from these different sites? Can see
right,
it being used for marketing, for example. Be like, what is this site going to look like on different devices? Ask it
right.
for
So
an
so
analysis.
browser rendering for those it's super rad because you have this serverless browser that you can go hit and we're going to grab a screenshot for you. You could say take a photo of all of my competitors and it would give you the list and go and oh Dina, this is cool. This is super cool.
Yeah. And it can do the analysis. That's the thing it's really good at.
Right.
D1, KV, R2 are
So
object
R2 is our object
storage.
storage, right? So like S3, so you can put stuff in or at least get stuff out from it. Is that the
Yes. You can do both.
That's cool. Okay.
Um, and you can use this and ask it, can you deploy a site using workers? Sometimes you have to hint it via MCP tools that says, hi, Craig.
Workers overloaded there. We are ourselves workers.
Exactly. And so it'll pop this up just to confirm that you do want
Ooh,
to make this
okay.
action. Sometimes it checks the list of what workers are already in your account. It'll be like, right now I'm getting an might be getting an authentication error. Oh yeah,
It's
because I have
okay.
to
It's
redeploy.
alive.
Yeah, we'll have next time. We'll have it working. But the only other
It-
thing that I do want to share,
oh,
um,
well, there's my website.
yeah, there it is. But now just imagine that it is deployed.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Right.
but I also recommend that everybody checks out our documentation. We can link it.
Yep.
But we have been focused on making it easy to build MCP servers. So to build an MCP server, you have to know about MCP, you have to figuring out how to make the routing work, et cetera, et cetera. Once remote MCP comes to life, you're going to have to figure out auth. And so our motto has always been, you write the code, we handle the rest. And we're taking the same approach with MCP, where we have built out the tooling that makes it as easy as writing a TypeScript method. And then boom, we take care of everything else that automatically exposes this as a tool on an MCP server.
Awesome. I'm pushing those to all of the places that we're streaming right now. So that page. But if you search for build an MCP server, you'll find it. You'll find it there. So super cool. So we are making it super easy for people to build MCP servers because we want people to play with it. Because so like, look, Dina, one of my favorite things about where we both work is our mission is to help build a better internet, and I feel like this is helping to build a better internet, a connected, like
It
everybody can
is.
communicate, and we're not rewriting things, and we're all getting better together. I think these MCP servers like help everybody get better, their applications get better, and use your tool better. So tool owners, people service owners, this is a great way to do it. Oh my gosh, I learned so much, Dina. Thank you so much for coming on Dry Run, and we will be back soon. Dina, we got to get another Kozlov
Yeah,
on here.
I will find it
Yeah,
for you.
let's have maybe we can have a whole show of Kozlovs. We could have a Kozlov off or something like that.
Yes.
I'll come up with a game. We'll come up with a game. We'll
We
play.
all build AI agents that compete with one another for the ultimate cause
Oh,
love.
that's great. That's it's on. Let's do it.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. Everybody go build your MCP servers. Go check it out. It's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you, Dina. Thanks everybody. We'll see you real soon. Thanks for hanging out. All right, Dina, let's let the upload happen here. Great job. So good.
Woohoo.